panel hosted by the Computer Science Club of Adelaide. Firstly, we'd like to acknowledge and pay respects to the Kaurna people, traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we gather on. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. So we'd just like to meet the panellists first. So we'll first start with Jim, and we'd like to ask where they currently work, where did they start off, and one important skill that they required to get where they are currently. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Jim Labilles. I'm currently a senior cybersecurity consultant for CyberOps, and also am an instructor at Flinders University, so a competition. I suppose if I have to pick one trait, I suppose to get into, you gotta be curious. You can't stay with what's given to you. You can't be satisfied with what uni is providing you, because it's never going to be enough. I think when you all graduate, and you all will, you'll all be looking for a job, and everyone that's looking for a job have the same qualification. You're all graduates. So what separates you as a graduate? So, it's the things that you do after after your day in uni. So that's I suppose the one thing that you should be looking into to get into cyber. And that's what I did.
Steve Laheney, currently working for Wavelink Communications. We're a distributor for Fortinet, which is the most deployed security appliance globally. About 1 in every 2 security appliances, or one in every 2, at least 50% are Fortinet devices. Previously I worked for Fortinet, so I worked for the company for 3 years in Adelaide, looking after Adelaide and Noordin territory. Now I do the same thing from a Fortinet perspective, looking after our partners in the industry, which is where you guys will probably all end up at some point, and helping enable them to, I guess, sell Fortinet solutions out there. Much like Jim, and it's interesting to hear him say that, I remember walking into my first interview, and there were 12 of us from the Uni of SA, so again the competition, and it was just as the university had become the University of South Australia, and I was interviewing. One of my friends had been in the day before and said she had a great time, spoke about volleyball because she was a state volleyballer for 45 minutes, had the best interview and walked out, spoke about work for 5 minutes. And I went, oh, this is going to be a breeze, absolute breeze. I walked in and I ended up interviewing with the state director, who was a lady who was also the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the university I was at. Suffice to say, I walked in and she looked at my CV and went, so everybody we're interviewing in the next couple of days is from Uni SA. There is only, and when I went to uni there was only one IT degree. You all did the same subjects, you're all here because you passed and you're smart. What else have you done? At which point I stumped myself a little bit, took a few seconds, had to think about it, and luckily I had been involved in a number of things through you. So I've been involved in, much like the Computer Science Club, we called it the Friendly Union of Computing Students, or FOSSEC for short. I was also involved in the university's clubs and societies, so I was the president of that. And that was great because I got to decide who got money for their shows through university. Best way to get an invite to every show in the university, be in charge of the money, guaranteed every time. So separating yourself, and it doesn't have to be a university thing. Think about the things you do outside of university. You might be the member of a sports team. You might be in a. I spoke to some Year 10 students going back a couple of years, and they were kids that knew they were never going to finish school and go to uni, and they were kind of on the path to, and we had all these young kids there that were just kind of going, I've got nothing to offer. And you start talking to them, and this one girl who was 15, her mum worked 2 jobs, her job was to get home at night, make sure that her younger sisters had food, cooked dinner, did their homework, got everything organised, shoot. And we're going, are you kidding me? That is a great skill. Talk about that when you go to the interview. Don't talk about the fact you've got a B+ or an A or a credit or distinction. Talk about those extra things, because that's what we're looking for to separate you from the guy sitting next to you that's done the exact same course. It's about bringing out your personality and what you can do and engage and talk about those things, and that will get you a step in front of everybody else.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mar. I'm the digital forensics person here. Career beginnings and all that. So I went into the IT field, I suppose, in 2008, but just by either by design or it was sort of the plan. I managed to secure a temporary position at the electronic crime section of South Australia. So my experience in getting into the industry is rather different from many of you. I did not attend university. I only started my master's at the age of 40 when I was already at e-crime. So I got in there by at the age of 37 for my 7 of my 9 lives. Did a course that I saw advertised on telly, so it was quite, you could say it was quite dodgy. It was Express IT, that's what it was called. And then it said that they would guarantee you a position if you met all the criteria, to get work. Because I, at that time, at 37, had never worked in an office before. I did not have a CV. I cut long story short, I did, it was this is an old certification which Microsoft has retired. I did my MCSA then. I think we had to do 6 exams. Well, I sat for the courses, 6 exams or something. I think for 5 of them I got 100%, which was not really hard, multiple choice. So with that, so I met the criteria that they had to get me a job type thing. So which helped because my CV was really liked on in terms of having a 9 to 5, So the way it was, got a job as a project officer with Hayes. That went into IT projects with SA Health, and then I became a government contract worker. So which meant it enabled me to apply for other temporary positions in government that is not available. I'm talking about state, of course. Not available to the public, I would say. And yeah, it was like I couldn't believe it when I saw this position advertised, and it was South Australia Police trying out a support officer position. So it was only a 3-month position, but I didn't care. It was my intention when I took the NCSA certification course that I wanted to go into the security side of things anyway. And they extended my contract for I think 2 years, 7 times before I got me a permanent position. So it was dedication. I just, the people who interviewed me thought like, I was so excited to see the lab. We had a Faraday cage. This is 2009. And a Faraday box rather, and you had these manky glove-like things that you had to put your hands through to touch the stuff inside. It was awesome. They couldn't, they thought that it was incredible how enthusiastic I was to do that. The good thing there was not many people wanted to apply for this position because it was only a 3-month thing. Everybody wants this permanent position, job for life, especially when you're in government. That wasn't my focus per se. I wanted the right position. So needless to say, I started, oh, not needless to say, I cut long story short, I started off as the lowest ranked civilian in that section, and I left as a senior electronic evidence specialist, where I also put forward a business case which was accepted, and we got 2 teams established. So, you know, I'm very proud of that legacy. What trait would I say? I think, of course, the minute Lloyd said that, I thought curiosity, and Jill beat us all to it. But for me, because I worked in law enforcement, and most of the things, everything that we did was always told to us as, think of it as you are going to go to court for every matter or every device that you handle. So I think there, it's not only, you know, of course, curiosity, because it's lifelong learning, right? You can't just stay in Windows Vista. So it is also a respect for the process, and also having that discipline to continue to remain in that process. You know, it is, digital forensics is quite linear, because many of the processes are linear, but then you go 1, 2, 3, but even if you circle back, you're still going to respect the process, because at the finish, you working in a law enforcement agency taught me that what if you had to go and explain all of this in court? Like, how did you follow the process? Do you have a process? So, and you know, you go and explain in court. I remember the first time I went, I was called as a witness. It was like, I think, probably 6 months after I had done a thing, and that time it was more of a statement of fact. You know, it was not opinion based, because I had not done any analysis, but because I was a civilian, everybody thinks you're an expert. And I went to look at my notes in case, and I'm like, where is it? And you know, panic. Oh my goodness, you know, luckily there were photos, and you know, that had logs, and that triggered. I was also a lot younger then, you know, 15 years younger. My memory is not as it was. So those, the times where they tell you that notes are important, they are, because it's for you. It's not for someone else. It's a memory trigger for you, you know, and especially when you're doing something that might be really important down the track, and you've done a million things in between. How do you remember that thing that you did maybe 2 years ago? Okay. See.
Hey all, I'm Bayley. I currently work as a senior software engineer at FOSSEC, and so what I currently do is, well, I presume everyone here has played games. You've heard of Unreal Engine, Unity, engines like that. So we work on binary hardening tools for games developers to protect against adversaries. So that's both from the point of view of when they want to trust us with their source code, so taking a step before the compiler and making sure we can, at compile time, transform these binaries into something that, you know, when someone wants to cheat in a video game, they're not going to have a very good time doing so. And when they don't trust us, bin-to-bin compiling, so that's taking up an executable that's already been compiled and using, actually essentially recompiling it into something new at real time. And that's currently in use in some games you guys might have played. Can't really talk about that, but, and then also the other side of that, that's defense. On the offense of actually detecting cheaters. So current big thing we're working on is detecting malicious PCIe devices. So these are used by cheaters on that PCIe port on your PC to plug in and run cheats across those. So a lot of our work is on device emulation, like playing the role of the cheater first of all, and then how we're actually going to fingerprint how these people are actually cheating. So it's a really cool field. And how I got started, well, if you imagine in the anti-cheat space, everyone is cheating on the other side. I was once a cheater. So a long time ago, I was an immature person who wanted to spite the anti-cheat companies, and I would publish methods that they would use on a personal blog or on forums, and so that caught the attention of a certain company, and they reached out to me and asked if I wanted a job. This was before university. I was only 18, so pretty quick exposure into a junior just graduate role, and it was a really big learning experience. Like I had no like big company experience, no enterprise experience of what a software engineer actually has to do, and I think that just came from the curiosity of like being lucky enough to be exposed to a certain niche, and then being able to be confident in the fact that had enough curiosity and perseverance to publish that sort of findings online. And I don't think I could have done that without the networking I was doing at the time. So I was dealing with like networking out in CTFs and talking on forums, just talking, sorry, not Discord at that time, but eventually on Discord, just with random people in the scene. And that networking aspect allowed me to actually learn a lot. And I think without that, it's really hard to get a graduate role because the barrier of entry is just so high. That skill, like the skill floor is so high, and the skill ceiling is so high. It's a really unique field. So I think you really have to dedicate a lot of time into it, and it's pretty hard to do that, to differentiate yourself when you're straight out of university. But I think people probably hammered on at you guys about getting side projects done and stuff like that. I think to get into this field, you do need to do that. It's such a broad field, and yeah, it's very hard to get into. But if you can differentiate yourself from your peers and show that you might have this little niche piece of knowledge that the interviewer can talk to you about, that you can talk to the interviewer about, it really helps.
I'm just going to open up the floor to any questions that the audience might have that might apply to lots of people. We can go through the panelists and have them answer each one. If anyone feels comfortable asking a question right now. No? Okay, I'll start us off then.
Right.
Josh?
From Bayley. With the sort of anti-cheat stuff that you're looking at, is this primarily to fight anti-cheating that is rampant in most of the gaming games that are out there, where you just obviously run your cheats on the second device completely, so it bypasses it?
Yeah, so that's actually my specific niche, and if you look all the way back in 2018, there's a post by me that started this problem. It's sponsored by some really smart person, way smarter than me, but I was doing a lot of the applications very early on. So yeah, it's specifically in that, like, how can the anti-cheat fight a battle where it can't see, like there's nothing really exposed to it. It doesn't matter what level you're on. But there is solutions to this problem. So I can probably I'll go more in depth in this, but like PCIe devices have to talk to the computer over the bus. And specifically in DMA, it's direct memory access. So PCIe devices have to be able to access the memory of the device. What do cheats have to do? Access the memory of the device. So there's essentially custom boards that are made that are sending packets across the PCIe bus to the machine, and they can get a response back, and they can read the memory that's then sent over a USB port just to a second device. And so the way to fight this is actually, well, that's a PCIe device. It's visible to the operating system. Is it behaving like a PCIe device? And that's where the real problem for cheaters become, because if you are acting like a PCIe device, you have to do what you're saying you're doing. So if you're a sound card, I'm going to go query your sound card driver, and I'm going to see if you can play a sound. If you're a serial port, I'm going to go check if that serial port has done anything. So yeah, specifically in that area, that's a really strong target for us. It's proved really hard too. You imagine someone's got a sound card from 2012, probably doesn't do what you expect it to do, and you don't want to ban anyone. So yeah, that specific field is really important, really cool to me.
Any more questions? No? So start us off. With AI emerging into the field, how do you think it'll impact your industry? We'll start from right to left here, so probably with Stephen.
Yeah, sure. AI, don't be scared of it. It's actually a really cool thing. I've spent a bit of time looking into it. The biggest issue that we see in the cybersecurity space is there are incidents where they are using deep fakes well enough to fake out people via Teams, via video calls, and that seems to be the emergence of video calls because of COVID is more prolific now, and as a result of that, the bad guys are using that to their advantage. There are a few examples where people have done interviews using AI and actually got jobs, only to show up and the people going, hang on, you're not exactly the person we interviewed. Yes, you look the same, but you're not the same. And there are situations where they are also having phone calls with finance teams, imitating companies, and basically eliciting payments through faking them online. That's the bad side. We use it, the company I used to work for, Fortinet, and I still tag myself with that. We use it to assist with lots of investigation across the networks. So particularly if you have a server with a particular IP address performing badly, we can actually use the AI to then query that without having to know all the specific details, and it will start to do the analysis for you. We've been using AI for over 10 years in the Fortinet products, and it's evolving at a very rapid rate because more and more people are getting involved, more and more thought leadership around it. There are the doomsayers, and yes, there is a risk of all of that. I tell the people I do, if you put something into Chat GPT and it's your personal information that hey, here's all my bank account details, can you create me a budget for the next month? That's now publicly available. Be very careful about what you put into these tools. They're great for helping you write out a little email that you have to write to somebody or do a few things, but there are some really cool tools out there, and I'm sure you've all played around with enough of them. In my specific industry, what I do, taking that cybersecurity space and parking that, a lot of what I do is person-to-person interaction. So as I said at the start, my job, I came from university as a coder, so that was my first job. And much like these guys say, when you hit the enterprise space straight out of uni, you got no idea what you're up for. It's not difficult, but it's not what you expect, and it's hard to explain that until you start doing it. But for me, I don't see AI as a threat on my position. As I said, I'm very much a person-to-person scenario. My job is about enabling my partners to be able to sell solutions. It can be put to good use to help, I guess, facilitate some training plans. Hey, ChatGPT will help us put together a training plan for these certifications, those types of things. Some of the cool stuff coming out where you can hook it into your email, again, you've got to be extremely careful about where you lock this down. And what we're finding now is a lot of the companies out there are very immature in their understanding of what AI is because they don't work in the field and they are just blatantly blocking it. Like, no AI. Even to the point where the company I work for put a handbrake on the whole thing, going, until we get a proper policy around this, and it goes back to what Noah was talking about before, until we get a proper policy around what and how to react with this, we're having none on on your work laptop. So not a massive impact to my industry in my actual role, but the surrounding parts of it, because it is all based around cybersecurity, is massive, and it will evolve and continue to evolve, and it will be something different in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time, and in 10 years' time. And to try and predict the impact it's going to have, I think anybody that's really predicting that is having a pretty good guess, and that's about it.
Jim?
My take on that is that, look, I'm not an AI expert. I don't work in the field, but I see a lot of doomsayers saying that jobs are in trouble. But I've never really heard of anyone saying I lost a job because ChatGPT replaced me or something. It's all predictions at the moment. It's all what could it be. No one's job, or you guys, will not be affected by the time you graduate, at least, that an AI can do the job that you're applying for. AI is a tool. Right now, that's what it is. It's a tool. It's still driven by the person behind it. And we don't know what it's going to be in 5 years. 5 years is a lot. If you look back where we were 5 years ago, sure ChatGPT wasn't there yet, and where we are now to where we are, because that jump in the next 5 years is not linear, that's exponential. So, you know, but I still don't see it being a threat to the jobs. I think there's still going to be a lot of human involved in any aspect of this, at the very least, cybersecurity, because you need that control, you need that check from a trusted person, not an AI working behind the scenes that you don't know what's happening. So I don't think it's going to be an issue in the next 5 years, I hope. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Mark?
Yeah, I see the potential for AI, but I don't know. One of my roles at when I was at eCrime was eCrime operated an physically air-gapped network, and I say physically because someone said, "Oh, but it's VLAN." I said, "No, there is no access. It's private monitor." So I manage almost 400 terabytes of data myself. All servers, and this is all operational stuff for all operational members to review cases and all of that. So even at that time, AI was emerging. Said, "Do this; it'll help you, get results faster." There were no privacy laws though. Where is the data going to go? And I literally said, I know all of South Australia here. I've got all your information because most of the devices or the data that was held on storage is personal data. It's not company data. So all the things that everyone was ringing. So 6 degrees of separation. SA is very small. Yeah. So yeah. So again. Privacy issues aside, I see how AI can assist in terms of how do we get run, like it will help us probably run periphery tools or create periphery tools that can interrogate data. So we're not actually going to ask AI, here's an EO1, can you go and find something for me? And here's an EO1. Not like that. So if we ran, it's how what you tell AI. So again, following on with what Stephen said, is about being careful about how you tell AI what you want from it. So with that, I think it would assist greatly. But I'm highly suspicious, and I was having this conversation with Lloyd and Kieran the other day that when my kids were teenagers, I had to tell them to not put me as their parent on socials, and they didn't understand why. And I said because it's privacy again, and right now we know how flimsy privacy and security is for many of these things. You just accept that if you put anything out there, it's going to stay out there. So we've all accepted that risk to some extent, all of us. So how much of that risk you want to accept, like that? So now, not being in a consultancy or advisory space, I don't know how I'm going to talk to my clients and say, oh, by the way, we're just going to put your data somewhere here, and AI is going to tell us how to interrogate all 25 mailboxes and find X. Not going to do that. I don't think I can do that. So I'm not willing to do that. Maybe my competitor might do that, but I certainly won't right now.
Yep, Bayley.
So in terms of AI in general, I know it's being used in the field of anti-cheats. There's not LLMs specifically, they just use specifically trained models to detect abnormalities, which is probably a lot easier in an entirely digital world with being fed millions of players' data. We don't do that specifically, but there's publications from studios like Riot Games, and that they publish nice little things of how they're using AI to not have a manual poor person have to scrape through demos of people playing, but just to automate detections on that data. I think LLMs themselves, in terms of software engineering, I've tried them out a lot. I don't use Copilot at all. I can use it, but I don't use it at all. I just think it's a fancier autocomplete that gets stuff wrong half the time. And if you're using it to drive your design decisions, right now that's a really big problem. It's not going to make the best decisions for you. I think as humans we have better compute power right now than that. It's just nicer. It's just literally just to make the decisions. To recall knowledge, it's really nice, but when you're using it as the only source of truth, it's very risky. So yeah, I in fact, maybe revisit this question in 5 years because of the evolution so far. You can see them getting a lot better then.
Just another point. How many of you are over 30 in this room? Right. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. I don't think DNS was even around when I started, right? So, you know, the evolution in that time, I was having this conversation with a couple of partners the other day, and we're kind of going, wow, we've been in the industry a long, long time, and we were at the table with some young guys, and we were like, we've actually been doing IT longer than you've been alive. And that's saying something, right? You know, you think back to what it was. You know, I think my first computer was a Commodore 64, and then after that was an Amstrad, and I remember very clearly paying something like $5,000 for this box, which was great, and it had a 30 meg hard drive in it, and that was all the space I was ever going to need. And I think I had a gig of memory, maybe, might have been 512. Colour monitor, whoa, you know, it was crazy. And I stuck a 1200 baud modem in the back of it. It might have even been 300 when I think I upgraded to a 1200. So, you know, I look at that, and then I look at what I've got in my hand. I'm a technical guy, that's my background. I'm in sales now, but the reality is I'm still, you know, home automation at home, and I've got all sorts of things, doing all sorts of things at home. But every time I implement some of that, I'm kind of going, how do I keep this in-house? You know, I don't want a cloud service to be running, so I don't want to be relying on that. How do I bring this in-house? And a lot of that goes back to, you know, that whole privacy thing. Some things are unavoidable, and I think, you know, you're right. We've all accepted the fact that we want to sign up to this stuff. You know, I think back to when I left Union started, like I was writing Visual Basic code, which was, you know, the latest and greatest thing, right? And we did a project for the government, and it was the first time we'd ever written it. And I remember there was 3 of us on this project, and there was a lady on there that spent 3 days programming a save box to save a file. And it took her 3 days to write this thing, even using the GUI. And because it was so new, my mate who went home, he was going home, going through the manual, he found 2 lines of code that you could actually create a message box. She spent 3 days, and that was just because that was the way we did it back there. Everything was from scratch. You started everything from scratch. So, you know, you look at something like AI today, and I go back to when I started, you know, it was in the movies, you know, Lawnmower Man and all the rest of those old crazy movies. And you were like, wow, that's amazing. And it's becoming a reality, but we're so far away still from the Lawnmower Man experience where, you know, the AI takes over, blah, blah, the whole bit. That it could be another 30 years before we see something of that ilk come to light. So, yeah, put it in perspective. It's not going to take your jobs anytime soon. You still need to be there to write the queries, control the queries, to ask it the queries, to feed it the information. Sure, as Bayley was saying, it takes away a bunch of the manual tasks, and that's where we use it in our SOAR platform to help do a lot of that stuff, and do a lot of the investigation around that. But you don't take a no job anytime soon, I don't think. And a big tip for you, don't use it to write your LinkedIn resume. That's so obvious. It is so obvious. I run an event for at the end of the year for Uni SA and TAFE SA, because they teach the 40 network security engineer for courseware as part of their final course. And I invited a bunch of partners to that, and they meet the students, and a big comment that came out last year was to the students, stop using ChatGPT to write your resumes. It's so obvious. There's grammar mistakes, there's spelling mistakes, there's wrong use of words, there's, you know, little rocket icons or emojis at the end of every sentence. Like, do it yourself. Do yourself a favour and actually learn how to write a CV. It'll put you ahead of everybody else without even having to try.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Have that knowledge and use AI as to help you
Yep.
flesh it out
Yep.
better, or finesse it, if you like.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
right. Exactly right.
Yep. We've got a question at the back, Austin.
This is mainly for Bayley, but what is your opinions on kernel level anti-cheat or even software for everyone else, especially for users?
I think it's a necessity. If you imagine the cheaters trying to gain every advantage over the other side, we see, and if you just take this example from antiviruses, they've gone to kernel way before anti-cheats did. They needed to, because that's where malware was going. And cheats have gone the same way. I think if you go out into the wild right now, 95% of cheats you see will be leveraging a kernel driver to cheat in the games. So you're going to need most of the time an anti-cheat at that level to actually fight back. I know there's been recent controversy because of CrowdStrike, because and Vanguard's so Riot Games has an anti-cheat called Vanguard that's boot start, so the same as what CrowdStrike was. It actually starts a little bit earlier than what the CrowdStrike driver does, so it has a little bit of extra privilege. And so they compared that, the problems that happen in CrowdStrike, with the problems that could happen in Vanguard. But with the fail-safe mechanisms in place, it's completely safe on your computer. I guess the issue maybe you're bringing up is the privacy of having that. I think it depends what company is deploying the driver. I'm not going to install Tencent's ACE anti-cheat at kernel level that's sponsored by the CCP on my computer, but Riot Games, who's based in the US, yeah, I could probably trust their stuff. And at the end of the day, you don't have to play the game. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Kay, at the back.
Bayley, have you tried reverse engineering the Riot anti-cheat?
Um,
Allowed to say it?
Yeah, so if you want to be in this field, you have to steal ideas from every other anti-cheat in the field, because there's people who are doing the same job as you, and one of the ways to do that is to reverse engineer those anti-cheats. Riot Games is particularly quite hard because they're extremely smart and backed by a lot of money and a lot of engineers, but they have really cool ideas. So yeah, I have.
Is there anyone else with a question? No? Okay, I'll ask another one then. What's the most important skill to get a job at your company right now? And we'll start from right to left again with Stephen. Yep.
Okay. So I'll narrow that down. The business I work in is slightly different, being a distributor. That being said, we do have a pre-sales team. So we operate as a business, so we have finance, we have purchasing, we have orders, we have people like myself who are a channel account manager enabling the channel, and I'm supported by 3 or 4 guys who are pre-sales guys. Industry level certification is a big one. So no matter where you go and work, and I hate to be the one to tell you this, there is a 99% chance you are not going to be working in cybersecurity on day one. You may work for a cybersecurity company, but you're going to be on the service desk or some other graduate level thing, and don't be sad about that. That's where we all started. We all got out there and started doing it and started earning our stripes. And to be honest, it's probably the best thing you can do, because it will give you a view of where you want to go. My son started his first job after finishing his degree here at Adelaide Uni in December last year. So he's now 10, 11 months in. And he's starting to find his feet about where he wants to go, and that's after 8, 9, 10 months on the service desk. And there are things he's learnt along the way where he's had aha moments, where he's learned something at uni and gone, so that's what that actually means. I could write it down in my exam paper and get 5 out of 5 for the score, but its real world application was not existent in how it worked in his head. And that's experience, that's enterprise level experience, that's getting out there and doing your job. So don't be upset about that. Big skills for us are personable skills. As I said before, you're all smart, you're all going to come out of uni with a degree, you're all going to do roughly the same degree, you're going to do all the same subjects, and you're going to score all roughly the same. Credit, distinction, pass, fail, wherever it ends up lying. You need to differentiate yourself and be somebody that, and you'll hear this a lot, somebody that fits in with the culture. It doesn't mean you have to change who you are to be something different, but you need to be open to the idea that you're becoming part of a company with sometimes 5 people, sometimes 500 people, and you need to fit in and work as part of that ecosystem. So you just need to understand that, be very conscious of that, and that's probably a big thing that I see that people, I've worked with some really brilliant guys over the times. I could stick them in a locked room with no windows and a matchstick and a tube of toothpaste and go, build me a computer. I'll come back 2 hours later, there'll be a computer there. Don't know how they did it, but they managed to get it to work, right? But could I put them in front of a client to have a conversation about what that client needs? Absolutely not. Could not do it. Everybody has their place. It's not saying you can't fit in if you're one of these types of introverted, closed-off people, but you need to be willing to explore what the culture of that company means, and that's a huge thing. And just remember, when you're in an interview, you are there with somebody who's looking to hire them into their team, number one, but you're also there with somebody from HR, most likely, who is going to be evaluating you as a person, as an individual. So don't be afraid to tell them who you are.
Yeah, Jim?
If you have to focus on a skill, I would say focus on your biggest strength. And understand that, if you get rejected, it's not the end of the world. Not every job is for you. You are not for every job. So, there is a fit. And sometimes you even get accepted to something that's not a fit, because after 6 months you hate where you are. Okay, so it's all exploration in the beginning. So like Stephen was saying, you have to find your feet. And exactly, you have this notion right now in your head that what's a cyber guy doing? Probably somewhere in a dark room with a hoodie on. Everyone's gonna be a pen tester when I graduate. So you're not gonna be so pen testing, just letting you know, is a very senior position. You have to actually understand a whole lot of genre of technology before you get to pen testing. Now, you've done CTF, you've done, try hack me, you're an expert in hack the box. That doesn't mean you're gonna be a pen tester off the bat after uni, right? That will help you get to a position, but don't expect to be a pen tester. At the very least, don't do that. Don't come and then be soaking when you don't get what you're looking for, right? So what I'm saying is, there's not a lot of pen testing job out there, so don't go looking for that and that's all I'm gonna accept, nothing else. You'll be on Centrelink for a while. And then have to pay for you. Exactly. So yeah, learn how to showcase yourself. An interview, right, is you prostituting yourself to the interviewer, right? Show them what you're good at. Maybe it's not technical skills, right? maybe they're hiring for something, but they also have a position that you haven't applied for. Maybe they can move you to that because they can see that you are very personable in the interview. You might not be very technically savvy the way they're looking for, but they can see that this guy can speak, this guy can talk, this guy could probably be on our client-facing sort of team. That kind of stuff, right? So focus on your strength and learn how to showcase yourself without being just over-exaggerated. Don't go, don't put in LinkedIn everything that you do online every night. That's just too much. Just, get milestones and learn how to showcase it. Again, I'm gonna second what Stephen said. Don't do a ChatGPT resume. Can you imagine a well-written resume by ChatGPT, well-versed grammar, very good, and then on an interview you rock up and you can't speak the way your resume speaks? That's just a very big no on the interview. That's just gonna really look bad on you. Like, if the grammar's correct on the resume and then the way you talk doesn't show that, big no. It's a big show. It tells people that you're shortcutting things. Okay. It's better to be original.
And don't, tell the truth. So my role when I started with Fortinet, being a cybersecurity company, for the first time in 30 years, I was subjected to an external company based in the UK who validated everything about me in my resume. Everything from I had to provide contact details to the last 3 employees and phone numbers details so they could check that up. They asked for copies of my bachelor's degree from the University of South Australia when I graduated. They went through everything I had on there. Now, I even had to fill out paperwork and go through a federal police check as well. And I was talking to the HR lady as I was going through this process, and I went, wow, I got called up by the federal police today to go through a check as well. And she goes, oh yeah, I'm really sorry about that. I said, I actually think this is really good. Like, the fact that you are taking this so seriously, you're fact checking what I put in my CV and making sure that it's actually real. And I said, I don't have an issue with it. In fact, I think it should be done by more. So that kind of thing is happening. As I was saying before, with the evolution of AI, people are using video calls and deepfake to do interviews and get jobs. So this thing is going to become more and more. And I think it's really important that you just be yourself and sure, you can elaborate a little bit, everybody does, but don't go to the point of being out of control. Like as I said, I've been in the industry 30 years. The company I now work for, I worked for when I was at Fortinet, or worked with when I was at Fortinet. I got my job with this company. I'd never met the people in person. I'd spoken to my boss on the phone only, never done a video call, and never given him a CV. And yet, I was hired. Now, he hired me based on the fact that he knew me from the company I worked for previously, and that we'd worked together and we got along quite well. He liked what I did, he liked my ideas, and that's where I got. It wasn't the CV that got me the job in the end. In fact, he's never seen it. But LinkedIn has got all the highlights, as you said, the milestones, right? And, it's not got everything on there, but it's got the highlights. And that is a really important thing. And I know starting out, you're going to look at that and go, I've only got a couple of things to put on there because I'm just starting out. We know that. We're not looking for a long history, and we do look for things. I do look for things and go, this person's had 10 jobs in the last 10 years. They're red flags. But if you can explain them, and I've had people that go, I just like contract work. I don't like to hang around a company. Okay, fine. And you fact check them, you check them, and that's exactly the way it is. So my first job, I was in for 14 years. That's kind of unheard of in a lot of cases.
Mark?
Yeah, I agree with a lot what Stephen and Jim has said, but I think also to be more relatable. So your relatability factor. For my the company now with Digital Trace, we're a boutique consultancy. So you're definitely going to have some client facing time. So you can be able to. You need to be able to speak to people, and if you can't do that for a company like ours, you won't. It's just not sustainable because we're not I don't want to say factory type. We don't, and so along with your relatability factor, it's also being flexible with your skills, your non-technical skills as well. So, kind of know what's going on in the world type thing. Like, had one of our part-timers the other day said, okay, come to Adelaide Oval. They didn't know where Adelaide Oval was. And then I realized and said, they say, that's the convention center. I said, no, it's Adelaide Oval. And I could tell that, so this is what I mean. We are, for us, we're in Adelaide, so being aware what's going around you also really helps. So that means, you're not under a rock, so you know that, where you are, and that means you have some kind of pulse on things that's going around you. Before I've been on a few interview panels for SAPOL, and I have wheeled out a few devices for them to take apart, show me where the RAM is. Brought a MacBook, a Mac Mini. I usually bring out the Macs, they're more in those days. Now they're like, yeah. So just if you're technical, you should be able to, because that position was not a pure software engineering or coding position. It would always need to be this whole forensics stream, digital forensics stream. At some point, even if you're a senior, you're going to have to go and open up some manky box in the corner to find out what's in there. Yeah, so things like that. It's just not a theory-based position in our company.
Yep, for us, we're a really small company, so usually it's, do you write Rust? No, just kidding. It's a pretty niche field in entry in general to get into. You have to have published some stuff, or or maybe have some networking in the field. And I think that applies to cybersecurity in general. Like it's really hard unless you network to someone and show them your value. All graduates are basically the same on paper, and I think it's also a field that requires a lot of versatility. You've got to get thrown around into different areas. The world's ever evolving in both cybersecurity and end sheets. Like there's new threats every day. There's people who are constantly working to do new things, and software on the other side. Software is getting updated every day. There's always new avenues people can go down to try and exploit systems. So I think it's to show that you have that versatility. You're not just a one-trick pony. You're not just this one area. That you're willing to learn a wide variety of things, and actually to a deep level, not just to the surface level. That I can say a couple of buzzwords like you can, like an interviewer can ask you something, and you'll actually know how to explain it to them too, because you've had that, I guess, practical experience in your own time.
Yep. Is there any more questions? Josh?
Just a more general question in regards to solutions and that. So obviously we saw with CrowdStrike how the supply chain can just affect a lot of customers and across the world. Where as say CrowdStrike took down the SA police, it took down a lot of them, took down Amber's, took down the entire Victoria metro line because they're running one antivirus. What would be the possible solutions in stopping that in regarding having, let's say, 2 antiviruses running and having 2 SOCs? For those who don't know what SOCs are, secure operations centers. Would that be a viable solution to help protect critical infrastructure that we rely on as a population?
Now you have to point out failures.
You can feel twice.
So if I can, so my answer to that, right? What you have to understand, and this is GRC talking. Cybersecurity should always support the business strategy, right? If there's a stalemate, for example, okay, there's a risk, but there's a business need. The business need will always be first. Cybersecurity should never hinder the business strategy, because at the end of the day, the business is a business. It's what cyber is protecting, right? So you can apply that theory, I suppose, but then what's the business use case of that? You gotta understand that all this EDR, XDR, whatever it is, right? It's not a direct, there's no direct monetized value for this. This is all operation costs. So what happened in CrowdStrike is a very, very, unfortunate, but also very, very, just shows that everyone's human, even a big company like that. And it's, it's very, very sad, and it's very awakening that it happened, but will it happen again? It will happen again, right? But we're more, we're putting guardrails to make sure it doesn't affect us more. What's going to happen is, for the critical systems, there's going to be redundancies that doesn't depend on the same system. So, for example, if it's running Windows, they'll have to find a way to run it on a different operating system, something like that. But throwing cyber for the sake of cyber shouldn't be encouraged, and is wrong. It's always going to be the business strategy. Cyber should complement the business. So that's my take.
So from a government perspective, I'm sure, and Stephen knows this as well, with tenders, they would have had tenders, contracts in place. That would really hurt them, I'm sure. They have failed in their provision of service, not by a little bit, but by a lot. So there'll be lots of penalties there. So probably get free, complimentary, sorry, not free. Whatever for the next 5 years or whatever, or when they renew, and that it's going to be at this cost. So, yeah, that's from the government side of things. Again, there's not an infinite bucket of money to throw at it, and as Jim says, it has to drive the business. Does it support the business? What is the goal? What's it for? Sorry, I talk about government a lot because most of my career was spent in that, and I've sat on tender panels as well. That what is the mission of this contract? How critical is it, and is there a threat to public safety? All those things would have been in their contracts, and with big rail going down and all, and money, banks or ATMs not functioning, that can lead to public safe unrest, basically. So someone's definitely going through a lot of pain.
You'll see. So there is a Critical Infrastructure Act, right, that's out, and that is all about addressing the critical infrastructure of the states and the Australian company and globally. We do a lot of work in that space, or Fortinet does, and I get involved in a lot of that as well, and it is very much around evaluating the risk to the business and what the business driver is. And as Mara also said before, there's only an infinite amount of money, right? And this is a conversation that I have daily with my partners and my previous customers. Yes, we'd really love to spend $1 million in doing that, but we've only got $500,000. What can we do? Well, here's the risk. And it's not my decision to make that risk, it's probably not that individual's, it's the board. of directors or the state government, whoever's running that, and if you can articulate the risk and then they make a decision. CrowdStrike, really interesting. Kind of got to laugh a little bit at it and kind of go, wow, we were that exposed, everybody. I think there'll be a lot of changes, not only to CrowdStrike, but to other organisations that roll out patches. Who rolls out a global patch all on the one day? Probably not the greatest idea, but they've been doing it for years, never been a problem, right? So hey, let's just carry on. Did they adequately test it? Who's to know?
Yeah.
Who's to know? Could they have missed that? Is it possible? Maybe. They'll be reviewing everything from their testing regime to their patching, how they deploy patches, and so will every other organisation. And there's no getting around that. It will happen again. Probably not at the same scale because I think everybody's changed their things a little bit. But I've worked in organisations where, and when I used to code, it's like, we've just released the latest release and nothing's working. Well, what did you change? No, I changed one line of code. How could that possibly have done it? Sure enough, you leave out a semicolon or whatever it is, and the whole thing crap. So we're all guilty of it, and we've all been there, and it happens in our everyday lives, not just in our field of expertise. You forget to fill up the car with petrol, and you're looking at the dash going, wow, I'm down to 0 kilometres, and the next petrol station's 10 kilometres away. Whoops, probably should have filled that up yesterday when I had the time. It's the same thing, right? It's just varying levels of, how it's applied to the industry. So I kind of, it gives us a job to, let's look at it as reality. We're all here because of those types of things. Listening to Bayley and his, countering cheaters. I too copied CDs way back in the day when that's what you had to do because that's how you got games. I remember rocking up to uni in my first year and had no idea about really much at all. Had a computer because mum and dad bought it for me, had a Commodore 64 and used to write a little bit of code by following what was in the book. These guys came up with these floppy disks and said, here, take this home and uncompress it. What's that mean? It's just uncompress it, put it on your hard drive, and then you'll be able to run whatever game it was, Leisure Suit Larry or whatever the hell it was at the time. And I'm like, I reckon it took me 3 days to figure out how to uncompress this thing. Like, I had no idea. Whereas now it's like, oh yeah, uncompress it, whatever. It's built into everything, right? You just don't even think about it. So, and everything has its inherent issues, and it will evolve. And the problems we're facing now, you look at something like COVID. Will it happen again? Yeah. At a level. And had it happened before? Absolutely. Yeah. The only difference was there wasn't the infrastructure for people to travel around the world and kind of make this disease go around quicker, right? COVID's not new. Yeah. And neither is CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike wasn't new, and the versions before that. And there'll be stuff that comes that people go, oh, this has never happened before. Well, yeah, it has, just on a different scale. So I don't think having two of everything is the answer because people just don't have the money. But there's an evaluation in there and an evaluation of the risk to ensure a business can operate. I get frustrated on a daily basis with my work laptop. It's locked down. Right, it's locked down by a guy who's not much older than you, and I've been working for 30 years in the industry. If I want to install this goddamn software, I will, right? No, I've got to go and beg him to unlock and remote log in and install the software, right? But, we're all kind of following by rules and risk and evaluation.
Yep. Did you want to say anything, Bayley?
I think it's hard to justify the two thing. I think it's really just an engineering failure / policy failure on CrowdStrike. If you look at the post-mortem they put out, they had tests for the channel file they published, and the reason it crashed, there was an incorrect number of parameters passed to the channel file, and in their testing they had a mock that just passed the correct number of parameters, so they never actually tested the channel file. The mock was accurate to the real thing, and the fact that can get pushed, it was all automated as well. It wasn't, I think there was one peer review, all automated and pushed globally after that to the whole world. That's a pretty big failure on policy. There was no canary rollout, nothing. Like, I don't think businesses could really do much with the level of access that CrowdStrike had and how big of a failure it was.
CrowdStrike also bypass the actual customers' policies and
Yeah.
auto install.
Yeah, they pushed the update to people who said we don't want updates.
So that's going to be all time we have for the open panel. We'll have a closed panel later. But firstly, this is the Computer Science Club. Come check us out. Those QR codes take you to things either our website or our Discord where you can sign up. We run events quite regularly in all kinds of fields. And I think that one is either one or the other. It's the Discord or the website. Not too sure here. You can give us feedback here as well. Nextly, there's food and drink around the corner. There's going to be pizzas and free drink. Please only take 2 slices of pizza, and then when you come back for seconds, then you can have more as much as you want. All right. Feel free to come up to the panelists, have a conversation. That's going to be it for the presentation for now. All right. No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.